Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things Curse of Strahd and Ravenloft. This is my third campaign diary video. My campaign diary videos aren't hugely popular. I'm hoping it's going to be one of those things where the more people discover my channel will become more popular in the future. I like doing them though because they kind of fill gaps in between domains. So I do my videos where I say this is how I ran Valachan and this is how I ran Forlorn. And this stuff is kind of the miscellaneous stuff in between those kinds of videos and adventures that may not really deserve or warrant their own venture. So I kind of give a little bit of like, oh, and this thing happened as well kind of thing. This one I'm excited to do because a major thing happened that I just completely wasn't expecting, which you probably saw if you saw the banner for this video. I'm going to mostly be talking about the unexpected Death Knight fight, and the Death Knight had advantage on everything. I'll explain how and why in a moment. So this one takes place between Forlorn and Tovag. So the second campaign video, I believe, ended as they were arriving into Forlorn. And we've just finished Forlorn, and that's 2 videos you can watch at some point. Part 1 is everything up to the castle, and part 2 is just the castle. Yes, the castle's that big and that complicated that it's got its own video that's over an hour long, which I know is ridiculous, but hey, it's how it happened. After they finished up in Forlorn, they went back to their base in Barovia. They did a few, I don't want to say boring things, it's just kind of out between adventure type stuff, such as going to Vallaki and doing some shopping, finding out some information about Tovag. I had a great excuse to introduce Cabe Whippool, I think their name is, who is an NPC introduced in Ravenloft Mist Hunters, and they gave some information to the players and PCs about Tovag, which is their next destination. Then when they went back to their base and I thought they were just going to rest up and the next day they would go to Tovag, they hit me with a surprise. So they have a magic item called Luba's Tarokka of Souls, and it can release monsters when it's used. And these monsters can appear anywhere within 100 miles, and given the nature of the domains of dread, I sometimes say that's kind of, if the domain borders are closed, they're in the domain that they're in. If the domain borders are open, well, they could escape and go to a completely different domain. And Bjorn Horstman from Forlorn, who I've played, is a lot more nice and good than I think perhaps older Forlorn lore, is an ally of theirs, and he's in their base, and he made a device where they could go in and they could trigger these monsters on purpose and fight them in a kind of contained space, almost like a mini battle fighting arena. It's quite cool. And I think I talked about this in my part 2 video. They fought a few easy ones, and the next one they had lined up was a Death Knight. And I was like, oh, I can't wait for them to fight the Death Knight. And they said, actually, we don't want to overdo it. We're not going to do any more. And I was like, oh, gutted. Because I'd even gone to the effort of researching the stat block, looking at the info on the monsters and know what they're doing, to really prepare and make it an epic battle. And they were like, no, we're not going to bother. And I was like, yeah. However, this time, they caught me off guard. And they said, why don't we've got some time to kill. We're going to Tovag tomorrow and we'll get a long rest. Why don't we do another card? And I let them know which cards were left that hadn't released a monster. And I said, oh, are you just going to draw anyone? And they're like, no, we're doing them in alphabetical order. And the next one was Executioner. And the Executioner card is the Death Knight. And a Death Knight appeared next to them and it had advantage on everything. And even though I wasn't prepared, I still remembered some of the monsters know what they're doing stuff. And it was an epic encounter. First thing I had to do was throw its Hellfire Orb attack, which is a bit like Fireball, but with fire and necrotic damage, where it caught a PC and a couple of NPC allies. Given who passed the saving throws, the people with lower HP passed, the people with high HP failed. If the people with lower HP had failed, they'd be knocked out immediately within its first attack. The Paladin used, I can't remember what the spell or the ability's called. If I remember, I'll put some text here while I'm editing, and basically goaded the Death Knight into fighting him. The Death Knight had 2 natural 20s on him because of the advantage, one of which was a staggering smite, so just wiped out tons of his HP. The Paladin has got lots of HP, has got a high AC because he wears like a magical plate armor and has a shield, so being able to do like massive attacks on him kind of made me think, hey, finally giving him something that's kind of challenging. And then with a few people around him, he did a destructive wave spell attack as well, and that really did some more damage. One of their allies at the moment is Jander Sunstar, although she's just going by Savra at the moment. And she got KO'd, and with about just 1/3 of its HP left, my Paladin with a Vorpal Sword got a natural 20 and beheaded and decapitated the Death Knight, ending the battle. They revived Savra, who also got KO'd during a battle in Forlorn, which is where they met her, and she helped them a little bit in Forlorn, and she got frustrated. And she said, oh, I feel like I'm a burden to you guys. maybe I'm not cut out for this monster hunting, vampire hunting thing. I only got into it because I wanted to avenge my mother who was killed by a vampire. And out of frustration, she screams, "When will I find you, Jander Sunstar?" And this is the information. If you look up the information for Jander Sunstar in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, I think she's a 5th edition, where it says that she is Jander's Dhampir daughter. And it's a long story, which I won't go into now. I'll go into it, I think, in a future video, I think, where Jander bit the mother, but didn't want to or mean to when the mother was pregnant with Savra, and that's why she was a Dhampir. And so Savra believes that Jander killed her mother, but Jander was, didn't intentionally try and kill her and all that kind of thing. And my players were like, they'd met and worked with Jander. I talk about this in my Dementlieu video, where they worked with Alan Lecrae, Arthur Cedric, and Jander Sunstar to take down a vampire who attended the Grand Masquerade in Dementlieu. And they told Savra that they knew Jander and knew where he was, and that he was in Dementlieu. And that they had an idea, which is, because as far as they're concerned, they don't know his past well enough to know whether what she said is true or not. They don't want to assume that she's wrong and he's a good vampire now. Maybe he did do this evil thing and kill her mother on purpose. So they said, we've got an idea. Why don't we're going to Tovag next, but at some point in the future, why don't we go to Dementlieu together? You can meet Jander. We can prove to you that Jander now hunts other monsters and vampires. And why don't we take down Sidra de Honor, the Dark Lord of Dementlieu? Now, when they did Dementlieu before, the borders were open so they could leave Dementlieu without facing Sidra. And they saw Sidra's tower. She disintegrated a person. And when the Battle of the Vampire happened in Dementlieu, she was casting Disintegrate on the vampire. A weird setup in the end. They were essentially working with Sidra to take down this other evil party who wanted to overthrow and usurp Sidra and become the new Dark Lord of Dementlieu. But they didn't like Sidra, and they always felt a bit uncomfortable with Sidra, but they realised that her disintegrate ability was very powerful. Now they're a little bit stronger, they've got more allies, and they're thinking of going back to Dementlieu with Sidra, and with Jander's help, taking her down for good. And I think that would be great. So that's really exciting. That's what I love about this domain hopping campaign, is I had it in my head that, they'll go to Tovag, then they'll go to Haslan and the Shadowlands, but now out of nowhere, just because of this, they might go to Dementlieu, go back to Dementlieu, finish off Sidra. So that is awesome. That's not something I would have expected until it happened in game when we were talking about it. Then they had a long rest, got things together, and now they're on their way to Tovag, which I don't think will be many sessions. I think it's just going to be a few sessions thing. And so hopefully in a few weeks' time, I'll have my How I Ran Tovag video where I'll talk about what they got up to in Tovag. And this has ended up being a really short video in the end, which I'm glad, because like I said, not a lot of people read these videos, but there's not much more to say. But if you have any questions or anything that you want more information on, feel free to drop a comment. But if you're trying to watch these in order of, you're sort of following my campaign and want to know the order, then after part 2, it's How I Ran Forlorn parts 1 and 2. And then after this video, it will be How I Ran Tovag. And then after that, I guess if they go back to their base again, they've got plans to, as well as Dementlieu, they might have plans to go to the carnival before they go to Haslan. That might be part 4. I guess we'll see. Thank you, Mr. Wanderers.